Hey guys, we are back for chapter 69, The Train. Remember we left off yesterday, Roz gets in the train car, and right as it's getting ready to take off, the door shuts and Bright Bill isn't able to make it in. So we're going to start picking up right there. It says, our robot felt something like panic as the train pulled away from the station. She wanted to break down the door, leap from the train, and find her son. But what could Roz do? She had to act like a normal robot. She had to pretend that nothing was wrong. The train's car interior was a long, windowless room filled with rows and rows of robots, and the robots were all facing forward and standing still. If not for their softly glowing eyes, you might think they were statues. Some of the robots were perfect and new, but most had scrapes and dents. None more than Rosum Unit 7134. Roz walked down the aisle and stood in the last row of the train and stared, and it started to accelerate. Faster and faster it went until it reached its cruising speed. Then it hummed along the tracks, occasionally swinging left or right as it snaked around a curve. With no windows, Roz could only wonder how far she was traveling. She could only wonder about the scenery outside, mostly because she worried about her son. Was Bright Bill okay? How would she find him? Of course they would. Bright Bill was smart and resourceful. The goose would simply follow the train tracks into the city. Then he would find his pigeon friend, Graybeak, and she would help them reunite. Roz just had to stay out of trouble. Time crawled by. The robots gently swayed with the motion of the train. Finally, there was an announcement from the loudspeaker. Next and final stop, Center City Station. A whistle blew, and the train braked and slowly came to a smooth stop. The door slid open, and the robots filed out. Here is the train. Chapter 70, The March Through the City. The main hall of the Center City Station was enormous. Wide columns stretched up to arched ceilings. A huge electronic screen flickered with train schedules, and the whole place was bustling with humans and robots, and everyone seemed to know exactly where they were going. Everyone except Roz. There was our robot standing still in a station while commuters hurried past. She was trying to calculate her next move, and she had to think quickly. You see, a normal robot would never loiter there long. Roz needed to do something, anything, and when a crew of Rosum robots marched past in single file, she could think of no better plan than to join them at the end of the line and pretend to be one of them. She followed the crew through a set of doors, and suddenly they were outside. The city was a blur of activity. Automobiles hummed down the streets, robots marched along the sidewalks, and humans talked and laughed and shouted. Buildings towered overhead, and above them airships buzzed around the sky. Airships. For a moment, Roz was dreaming again about how easily she could get home with an airship. But reality came crashing back when a white triangular ship darted over. It was gone in an instant, disappearing behind the rooftops. But that was all it took for the robot survival instincts to flare. Were the Recos searching for Roz or going about some other business? Roz tried to focus on her immediate surroundings. She was still marching behind the crew of robots. With each step, she grew more nervous that they'd notice her tagging along. She wanted to break away, and as they started weaving and shuffling through a crowd of tourists, Roz slowed and stopped, and the robot crew continued on without her. Now, Roz was on her own, but she didn't know what to do or where to go. When in doubt, Bright Bill had always guided her north. So our robot set off through the city in that direction. While marching northward, Roz passed beautiful boulevards and architecture and gardens and art. And yet, she had to ignore it all. She had to act like a normal robot. And a normal robot would never wander the city admiring beautiful things. Wherever Roz looked, she saw normal robots, concentrating on their tasks and on nothing else. They ran errands, delivered food, swept sidewalks, cleaned windows, fixed machines, built glorious structures, and did more jobs than you could possibly imagine. Most walked on two legs, but some rolled on wheels or slid up and down the sides of buildings on tracks. The city was glittering, modern metropolis, where humans lived in luxury, and all thanks to the tireless work of robots. Roz was marching when the sunlight faded and the city lights brightened. She was marching when the humans went in for the night and robots continued to work. She was marching when the sun came up and the humans filtered out of their buildings. A new day had begun in the city, and there was Roz marching north, blending in, anxiously hoping her son would appear. Chapter 71, The Observations. Sunlight sparkled off the skyline. New buildings were constructed. Old buildings were taken down. Cargo ships docked in the harbor. Delivery trucks unloaded crates. Bright signs flickered with advertisements. Robots worked beneath the scenes, and children played in the parks. Adults ate and drank at outdoor cafes. The city pulsed with energy. A wild robot observed it all. Chapter 72, The Police. Ooh. A pair of police robots stood on the sidewalk while foot traffic glided past them. Their heads swiveled back and forth as they scanned the crowds with their glowing eyes. The police looked menacing, but they sounded friendly. Whenever a human walked by, they'd say, "Have a nice day," in a perky voice. There was a lot of humans walking by, so the police kept repeating their words. Have a nice day, have a nice day, have a nice day. Our robot was not having a nice day. She was alone in the city. She was worried about her son, and she wanted nothing to do with the police. But she couldn't avoid them. If she turned suddenly, she might draw their attention. So she kept her eyes forward and calmly marched along with the other robots on the street. Roz may have looked calm on the outside, but on the inside, her thoughts were scrambled. Wait, were the police dangerous? Did they work with the recos? Was she about to get caught? It seemed as if the police were watching Roz. Their eyes lingered on her for a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, and then they continued scanning the crowd. Our robot felt something like relief when she made it past without incident. She went on her way, just another robot on the street, and those perky voices gradually faded behind her. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. Chapter 73, The Pigeons. In the very heat of the city was a great swath of greenery, the old park. It had rolling lawns and flower gardens and dense wooded areas. It had lakes and ponds and fountains. It had playgrounds and benches and miles of cobblestone pathways. It also had pigeons. Thousands and thousands of pigeons. The city pigeons witnessed things you wouldn't believe. Nothing shocked them. They certainly weren't shocked by robots. So when Roz marched into the middle of the park, the pigeons weren't troubled in the least. She approached a flock that was about 100 birds strong, all cooing and strutting across the cobblestones as if they owned the place. But as Roz stomped closer and closer, the pigeons scuttled out of the way to let her pass. However, Roz didn't pass. She stopped and glanced around, and when she saw that she was alone with the pigeons, she started speaking to them in the language of the animals. Hello, pigeons. My name is Roz. The pigeons cocked their heads, which meant, is this robot actually talking to us? Yes, I am actually talking to you, continued Roz. I am searching for my son. He is a goose named Brightbill. Have you seen him? For the first time in a long time, the pigeons were shocked. Several of them fluttered away from the talking robot, but most were too curious to leave. One pigeon was so curious that she strutted out of the flock and right up to the robot. Let me get this straight, said the curious pigeon. Your name's Roz, and you've got a son named Brightbill who's a goose? That is correct. I can't believe it. The pigeon flapped her wings and turned to the others. You guys, this is Roz from Grey Beak Stories, remember? The flock began cooing excitedly. You have heard of Graybeak, said Roz. Everyone's heard of Graybeak, said the pigeon. A while back, she started telling stories about a goose whose mother was some kind of wild robot. We all thought she was joking, but I guess not. She was not joking, said Roz. But I have lost my son, and I do not know how to find him. Perhaps Graybeak could help. Do you know where she is? I hate to tell you this, Roz, but Graybeak is dead. The birds all lowered their heads. You know, life ain't easy for us pigeons. We only live a few years out here if we're lucky. But we were especially sad when we lost Graybeak. She was one of the best. And the others cooed in agreement. I am sorry for your loss, said Roz. I wish I had gotten to meet Graybeak. My son was very fond of her. The pigeon gazed up at the robot with a steely look in her eye. If any friend of Graybeak is a friend of ours. If Brightbill is lost, we're going to find him. She turned to the others. You heard me, flock. Hit the skies. And tell every pigeon you see to start searching for a goose named Brightbill. At those words, the flock erupted into flight. Only the robot and the curious pigeon remained. By the way, they call me Summer, said the pigeon, fluffing out her chest feathers. It is very nice to meet you, Strutter, said the robot. Thank you for searching for Brightbill. What can I do to help? You can't help. You can help by staying put. I want you in this park when we return with your son. Don't hide or wander off and make us go searching for you too. Oh, and another thing, Strutter added. Stay away from the park ranger robot. He spends most of his time taking care of the grounds, but he's always on the lookout for troublemakers. The pigeon gave a quick salute to the robot, and then she joined in the search for Brightbill. Okay, we're going to stop there. That's our 5 chapters. When we come back, chapter 74. We're on chapter 74 out of 90. How close are we getting to the end? It's very exciting. The next chapter is called The Sky. So I'm assuming it's going to be about all those pigeons going up into the sky and trying to locate Brightbill for Roz. So I will see you next time. Bye.